Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with a fun rainbow card, literally rainbow. I started off with some Canson XL watercolor paper and I ran that through my die cut machine with the Rainbow A2 pierced cover plate from Honeybee. And this doesn't do any cutting, it just pierces the detail. And once I had run that through, it doesn't die cut, so you can do it on a larger panel, which is what I did here. This is slightly bigger than A2 sized. So after I'd run it through, I taped this piece down to a hardboard because I'm planning on getting it very wet with water and sprays and all the things. And this will help keep it from curling, but it also is going to help because I'm pretty much going to hold this like right up and down. You'll see in a second. So I'm still on this kick. On my channel, I've done a bunch of videos using 3 distress colors: Picked Raspberry, Mermaid Lagoon, and Mustard Seed. They're just the perfect go-to to create a rainbow. So I'm using distress spray stains. You could use distress inks. You could use the distress ink refills. You could experiment with oxides. That would work too. Whatever sort of floats your boat. You could use other water reactive things like watercolors, water reactive inks in similar colors. Anything's going to work. I'm using the spray stains because I really like playing with them for, watercolor and that sort of a thing. And the colors they mix beautifully. So I just put, dabs of them onto a palette here. I don't ever want to pour them out because knowing my luck, I'd end up pouring out half the bottle. And it doesn't take much. These colors are pretty intense. So I've got them on there and I just got this entire panel wet with clean water. And then I start at the top and I'm kind of dripping the color on, but I'm also using my brush to somewhat control it. Not totally. I kind of want it to do its own thing, but I still want to, make sure it goes from the top to the bottom, basically. And I'm going to go in rainbow order. So I did the picked raspberry, and then I'd mixed picked raspberry with mustard seed to get an orange. And then I used mustard seed as is for my yellow. And I mixed mustard seed with Mermaid Lagoon to get my green. And then I went in with just Mermaid Lagoon for my blue. And then finally I mixed picked raspberry and Mermaid Lagoon to get my purple. And as it's dripping past the painter's tape at the bottom, I just have a baby wipe I'm using to kind of pick up and wipe. You could have a towel under this. That would work. Or I always show my flour sack cloth in videos, and I should have used it. Hindsight as I'm editing, the things I think of. Anyway, it's not the end of the world, but I just wiping it up as I go because I'm the worst. I have stains all up my arm, picked raspberry stains, literally. Because I get my elbows in everything. Anyway, I just had fun with this. I'd go back and forth a bit, adding more little drippy bits, and then I let it dry. And then I was like, ooh, this needs more. It needs shimmer. So I pulled out this Be Shimmery. This is the liquid shimmer watercolor that Honeybee came out with not too long ago. And it's water soluble. So I mixed it with a bunch of water because I wanted it. It's fairly liquidy. And what you actually could have done is I could have just mixed it with all those spray stains before even applying them. But I wanted it more kind of a drippy effect. This is kind of supposed to be a rainy background, that sort of a thing. So I started by just applying it and letting it run right down. But then I just went to town. I'm going to splatter. I splattered it heavily because I wanted that to kind of run as well. So I just kept kind of picking it up with my brush, splattering it all over this, letting it run down, adding even more because this shimmer, it's really pretty. It's really pretty. And I forgot to show before I turned the camera off, but I actually set this board vertical and let it dry that way so that any more little bits would kind of run down as it dried. And you can see here now that it's dry, I have this crazy runny but shimmery rainbow background that has the piercing, the rainbow piercing detail in it too, which is just fun. So after it was completely dry, I started trimming this down to, I was going to do A2 sized, but then decided to trim it down slightly smaller than A2 sized. because the plate itself, that rainbow A2 pierce plate, is A2 size. So anything past that doesn't have that piercing detail. Plus I wanted to remove the borders. So I just used my guillotine trimmer and trim this down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So just slightly smaller than what my A2 card base will be. And then once I have that trimmed down, I pulled out my MISTI and some vellum. And I'm going to stamp the clouds from the new Rainbow Dreams stamp set. I'm going to stamp those onto the vellum with clear embossing ink. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool first. Treated the vellum with that. And I'm going to ink up the stamps with clear embossing ink. Press that into the vellum. And then I'm going to coat these with detail white embossing powder. And then I'm going to melt these with my heat tool. And then off camera, I actually flipped the vellum around and just stamped one more of the clouds because there was space on here. So I was like, why not? And heat embossed it as well. So I'll have some vellum clouds with the white outline that I will be die cutting with the coordinating wafer dies. And I also, you can see there on the right, I just die cut some scraps of white cardstock with the same wafer dies. So I'm going to have some solid cardstock clouds and then these fun vellum clouds with the outline. And then I pulled out the Look for the Rainbow stamp set that I just love. I love the sentiments in this set. Love. So I took the rainbow word and I lined that up in my MISTI. And then I grabbed, this is just a little non-stick craft mat. This is actually the one that comes on the Tim Holtz glass media mat. Any sort of like non-porous craft mat sort of thing will work. I've shown this in other videos on my channel as well. And I actually showed this in the live video that I did for Honeybee. On their Instagram page. I was trying to remember which, because I did 2 live videos for them on their Instagram page. Anyway, all I did was smush the edges of the same colors of Distress Oxide inks. So Picked Raspberry, Mustard Seed, Mermaid Lagoon. So I smushed the sides of them onto that nonstick craft sheet, and then I picked up those inks with my brayer. And when I ran the brayer back and forth, not only did it pick up those inks, but the colors mix, so I get all the colors of the rainbow. And then I just use the brayer to apply the ink to the stamp. And because I'm doing it this way and not smushing the ink pad directly onto the stamp like you normally would, it's not as intense, and that's why I stamp it more than once, like ink it with the brayer, stamp it, ink it with the brayer, stamp it, etc. So after that was stamped, and I have my fabulous little rainbow sentiment, I'm going to use the coordinating wafer dies. I'm going to tape those into place for that sentiment. I'm going to use the Rainbow Dreams coordinating wafer dies to die cut the clouds. And then I had white heat embossed more sentiments with the Look for the Rainbow stamp set. I white heat embossed them onto black cardstock. So I die cut those with the coordinating wafer dies as well. So I have everything die cut. And then set all that aside after I was finished die cutting. Since my MISTI was still sitting here, I put my card base in my MISTI, and I'm using the Rainbow Dreams stamp set again, but I'm using just this one, what you call it, rainbow band, arch, whatever you want to call it. The one with the hearts. I love it. I lined that up on what will be the inside of my card, and then I did the exact same thing with the ink, with the oxide inks. I just smushed those onto the craft mat, side by side, rolled my brayer through that, and then used the brayer to apply the ink to this stamp, and then did this a couple of times to get a nice stamped image. So I've got these like little multicolor hearts on the inside of the card. So I was letting that ink dry, and while I was doing that, I pulled out my little Xyron X sticker maker and ran those vellum die cut clouds through this, because vellum, you either need to try and hide the adhesive behind things, like adhere something on top of it, or be very, very particular with the adhesive, or you could like completely coat it, but I did a video on my channel a couple weeks ago. Not my favorite. I don't like using a lot of liquid adhesive on vellum. This is my favorite way, is using the Xyron, because it just applies a solid amount of adhesive. So that's what I did. And then I rub my bone folder over that to really press it into the adhesive. And then the final trick I have is right now I'm using just Honeybee's little die release tool, the little like spatula end. And I trace around the edges of those die cuts. I've used a stylus to do this, just anything that you can kind of press in. That prevents those little like sticky bits that usually will happen when you run something through with a Xyron. You know, you'll peel off that release topper and there'll be like little sticky bits, and it's so annoying. But if you trace around it like that and just press it really well into before you remove the release paper, completely removes that. It's game changer. Makes life so much easier. So I did that with those little vellum clouds, and then I can just adhere them into place. You can't see the adhesive. It's perfect. So I adhered those. I cut off like the edges that were hanging over and then placed those in other places. And I also had a little die cut gold glittery sun. That was actually from the Rainbow Builder A2 card base. There's that fun little sun wafer die in that set. So I die cut the gold glittery cardstock from that, adhered that into place. The white cardstock clouds I popped up with just some thin 3D foam squares. And then I adhered my sentiments to the front of the card using a combination of foam squares and some glue to get them adhered into place. Once I've got my whole card front assembled, I'm going to adhere the remaining sentiments to the inside of the card that I had stamped and heat embossed and then die cut with coordinating wafer dies. So get those adhered to the inside of the card. And then I'm just going to use my little score buddy to make sure everything's straight as I like reinforce that fold. And then for the card front itself, I used Simon Says Stamp's Big Mama foam tape, aka their thin foam tape. It's not as thick as standard foam tape. So that's going to adhere everything, give it a little bit of dimension. And then of course, I went through my embellishment stash. I have these fabulous little like teardropped shaped embellishments, which are perfect. So sprinkled those throughout this card so they look like little raindrops. And I'm going to adhere them in place. And then as the glue dries, it will dry clear. Right now it appears kind of whitish, but the glue will dry clear. So then all you will see is these cute little like raindrops coming down from the clouds. So once I get those adhered into place, this card will be complete. And I didn't even really need to use the flashlight on my phone to show the shimmer. You can see it in the lights. It's so pretty. I'm probably not going to put this bottle of Be Shimmery liquid away. I'll just keep it on my desk. But I still turn the flashlight on my phone. So you guys can like, that sparkle is just, it's delicious. So yeah. Love it. Sparkly rainbow. This was really fun to make. As always, I will have a link below to the blog post. I'll have a supply list. I'll link to all the supplies I used. So you can check out that info below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping, commenting, all the good things. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye.